I played it. I can even tell you why I got stuck. Getting unstuck and getting out of these patterns of codependent ways, behaviors, conversations, communication are all very positive. We're going to talk about that today in a very, very positive way. Kind of help you to identify if those are some of the areas that plague you in relationships as well. And if it is, hey, it's okay. It's not a bad thing. I think that what we need to realize that is that how can we begin to change them and shift them and turn them around? Because they're really just negative patterns that have developed over time and, that we just need to work on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
yeah, so I'm sharing it now to the group.
yeah. So, so what do you think, Tim? Codependency. I can go ahead and just kind of tell my story.
If you want
me.
to, share, feel free.
So here's one of the things that I've noticed in the past for me, and this is definitely in the past. I'm a lot better now. But one of the things that has been really big for me was being the one that was the dependent one in the relationships that were codependent. There's usually a caretaker, and there's usually someone who is very dependent on the other. And you got to know which one you are so that you can begin to break the habits. Well, for me, I was the dependent one. And so I was always trying to um, have others make decisions for me. I was very dependent on the men in my life to kind of be the ones who were, take control. I like to take control kind of guy. But that was because I was dependent on others making decisions for me. It wasn't because he was very responsible. And usually the guy would come in to rescue me from something. And so, Tim, just be honest, because that was us in the beginning. We did a little rescuing and we did a little dependency kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
in fact, he rescued me from DC and moving me all the way across the
Seen
country.
and unseen.
But I wasn't that dependent that I moved in right away with them.
No,
And
no.
I did get my own space, and I did try to figure out how to live on my own, because that was really literally the first time I had really lived on my own, all by myself.
Can I give my side to that? Because I think you're not
Okay.
giving yourself enough credit.
Okay.
Quite honestly. I mean, because what's true is, I have a tendency to get into relationships that are codependent or had in the past. And so I was looking for that. I was like, okay, can she take care of herself? Because here's what's true about Jen.
Yeah, you were a little bit more healthy probably than me.
Well, I mean, I had just spent some time working on it. But the thing is that you were living by yourself. You had your own jobs, your own money, your own
got my job before I went out there.
Yeah, I mean, you had in a number of years prior to that, I mean, you had tons of experience in the field. You were doing the doggone thing.
I was doing the doggone thing.
You had actually lived had visited South Africa, and like by yourself. I was like, wow, you just kind of up and decided I'm going, and did this multi-city tour, speaking, to people about being independent. How about that? So no, I looked at all of that and I thought, okay, this woman's got some stuff on the ball. So so it was all good. I think we have a tendency to look at ourselves and be a little bit more
very differently, right?
than other people are.
That's true.
But yeah, so interesting stuff about this whole codependence thing, right? Because it kind of sneaks up on you. often you don't know that you're in it until you are in it. You don't really, you're not really aware. Well, let me speak for me. I haven't been often aware of my codependent traits.
Okay.
So, and as you said, mine, I tend to be sort of the caretaker. The person who tries to take care of somebody. I ride in on my white horse and I rescue, I save the day.
You're pretty handsome too, though. You did it.
Be careful now, I'm married.
Okay.
No, but yeah, but here's the thing. So I would do that, and I'd look for that, and if I'm honest with myself, I still look for opportunities to do that in situations. I have to be very, what's the term? Aware,
Self-awareness, yeah.
To notice that, okay, Tim, this is, and now, so let's talk about that part of the equation. So that the person who does that is typically the person who is doing that not out of genuine love, concern, right, for the other person. They're doing that for selfish reasons. And I'm just going.
Are you talking about the caretaker role or dependent? I think we should be very clear. Okay.
I'm talking about the caretaker. The caretaker looks like,
which role?
Looks like he or she is being very unselfish and coming to the rescue.
Oh yeah, and
right?
I just want to help you.
I just want to help. I'm just, that's all. But really often we have this, and sometimes we don't even realize we have it, but we have this agenda underneath, right? There is what we call.
What was your agenda?
A secondary benefit.
I'm sorry.
What was my agenda?
Yeah, what were you trying to do?
I can't tell you that.
Okay.
No, really, ultimately, it's always the same. Really, what it comes down to is that because my self-esteem is so low, I feel like that in order to make me feel good about me, I have to get other people to pat me on the back.
Yeah, and that is false affirmation, right? That's kind of what it is.
False affirmation for sure. Yeah, and so I get affirmed falsely and dysfunctionally by other people, and ultimately I get sort of addicted to that, if you will, right? And so I need there to be a damsel in distress, so that I can come in and save the day, and then get patted on the back. You did a great job. Oh, I don't know what I would have done without you. Oh, you're my hero.
Yeah.
All that, right? And I'm just keeping it real. That's really often why those of us who are in relationships like that do that. Now stay with me for a second, because what's true is not everybody who's helping somebody is doing that for that reason. We're talking about people who are codependent and who kind of fit that mold. So yeah.
Well, I think for me too, like I think my second agenda kind of was to get somebody to feel sorry for me. And it's not always conscious. It's not always something that I knew that I was doing. But I was feeling sorry for myself. So if I could get you to feel sorry for me as well, and then take care of me, then that fulfilled that little space where I didn't have to take care of me. Somebody else was going to do it. And I could, again, be that in that dependent role. So I think that was the part that kind of was just noticeable for me after a while, because I think, even though like the first year or two or something like that, it kind of played out in our marriage. I think one of the things that really changed over time was, you begin to say, hey, you have to take some responsibility for this. And you were right. And I didn't like you very much after you said it. But you were right. And it did make me kind of reflect and think about what I could change and what I could do differently. And I think that was good, because that was growth for me. And that became my awareness. Okay, like, yeah, I do need to, what can I do here? And what do I need to not depend on you for, but even like cooperate with you together so that we're solving a problem together. And I'm not fully depending on you to do it.
Okay. Absolutely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So, I think it's important to think about like so like let's kind of more clearly define what codependency is. Because I think
Mhm.
we may be making some assumptions that people really get it and understand.
Yeah,
Um, so codependence, I like to think of it this way. So an alcoholic is addicted to alcohol.
yeah,
A drug addict is addicted to drugs. A codependent is addicted to relationship.
yeah. Of another person. Yeah.
Yeah. It's called as a matter of fact, another term for it is relationship addiction.
Relationship addiction. Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that
And crises are often involved in that. Like
oh my goodness.
you're
Yeah.
having some kind of emotional crisis,
Yeah.
a situational crisis, or
Sure.
there's some kind of, you know, issue that's going on, even in your family with
Mhm.
drama or whatever, and you need to be rescued from that.
Need to be rescued. Right. Right.
Hmm.
And so what happens then is what tends to happen is really what we're doing is we're trying to figure out how do we cope.
Hmm.
Right. So I'm you're using my weaknesses, right?
Hmm.
And insecurities to as a way to help you cope. I'm using your weaknesses and insecurities as a way to help me cope.
Well, sometimes they're your strengths too. I
Really?
think in
Say more.
like, because you're like, one thing I noticed about you, you knew how to come in and change the situation and make it happen, like, and provide remedy. And you were really good at that. And so
Hmm.
if I needed something to be done, I would just be like, so what are you gonna do? How are we gonna handle this? And I would make your problem mine.
Yeah.
My problem yours. It
Yeah.
would be like that. And so I'd be like, and you'd be like, so
Here's
I
what we're gonna
think,
do.
yeah, you would just jump in. This is what we're gonna do.
Make it happen.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
and
but
then I
here's the
get
thing
mad
though.
at you. Then I
Mhm.
would get mad at you if something turned out bad or wrong. I would get upset, and you'd be like, "But I was just trying to help." And then, because it wasn't to my standard, because it wasn't me. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like a big, ambiguous kind of, circling kind of relationship that
Oh
just
yeah.
kind of continues to show negative patterns that
Mhm.
really wasn't helping either one of us.
That's true. But my strength in that space it was in point of fact fixing it, right? Making it work.
Fixing
But
it,
my
yeah.
weakness is I needed the pat on the back, right?
Mm,
I needed affirmation from outside of myself, right? And
yeah.
that's what you provided for me, right? You
Mhm.
you gave me somebody to help, right? So that then you could come along and go, you did great, and I'll
Yeah.
be, oh, you said I did
Ooh,
good.
dysfunctional. Thank you, Lord, that we were delivered. No, that's out of our lives.
Yeah,
But no, I think where we began to break those patterns was just recognizing that, we were just drained, the draining part of the relationship,
yeah,
like always you stepping in or always me, getting resentful about something. And so we decided to wait a minute, this is not healthy. And
yeah,
we know it because we're counselors.
yeah.
And we help people with these kind of things. So why are we doing it ourselves? And I think that being able to talk through things and have the good communication around it kind of helped us begin to change things. It
For
really
sure.
did over some time.
And being able to set boundaries. Being able to
Setting
set boundaries.
boundaries, yeah.
Yeah. So like I remember the beginning of our relationship, I was always like in your back pocket. I was, you were like, at one point you were like, listen, can I can a sister get a little space? And I was
But
like,
here's where I was codependent
why
because
you
it
gotta
was
say
like I thought you were just very admiring me a lot. And I thought that was pretty cool to be admired.
yeah.
But then it was
So,
like, okay, I just need, and that's when I really start setting boundaries. And I think that's when, okay, it was like, yeah, let's talk this through. Let's talk
Right.
about what it means to be husband and wife and have independence and hang
Yeah.
out with friends and like, do you have friends? It was like that kind of conversation.
Yeah.
Because everybody needs that time away from each other so they can have time to miss each other and,
Sure.
come back together and regroup and say, hey, what you been working on? And,
Right.
that kind of thing. I think that's
Right.
important too.
Well, I like to talk about relationship math, right? So in regular math, 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 1 whole.
Hmm.
But in relationship math, 1/2 person plus another 1/2 person equals a dysfunctional relationship.
Good point.
And so the thing for me was, just trying to having to notice that I wasn't whole.
Yeah.
Even though I was married to the woman of my dreams,
Hmm.
and things were going relatively well in my life, I wasn't whole because I didn't have my own friends. I didn't, I expected you to sort of be my everything, right? And what we talk about is in the past is that, the 80-20 rule, right? You can really only expect to get about 80% of what you need from one person.
Yeah.
The other 20%, you gotta, and that's 80% at most. The other 20%, you got to go find other people to
Right.
connect with, right? And you kept telling me, don't you have any friends? you know? And I was like, I'm too busy to get friends. That's why I got a wife. you know?
Wow.
So, but eventually though, I kind of matured a little bit, began to go out and be intentional about connecting with other guys
Hmm.
and hanging out more and actually being a human being and not just a human doing.
Well, I think it's good though that we were able to kind of tell each other, wow, that's really not healthy. And it was funny because we would get mad at each other for telling each other stuff. But at the same time, we were like, no, you're right. And I think the whole humility part of it was really
Um,
good too, because we were able to kind of stand back and say, yeah, maybe it's not too cool to be acting this way. And is this really healthy?
this
And
really
what if it's not healthy, what does healthy look like?
right.
Like you said,
Oh,
that whole piece around wholeness.
mhm,
And so what is wholeness? What is wholeness? What does that mean? Like,
mm.
how do you what do you have to compare it against? What do you think?
Wholeness, yeah. Mm.
Hmm.
I think when you learn to notice that I'm enough,
Yeah.
like what I think of me is enough.
Yeah. Kind of
I don't
like
have to have,
self-acceptance.
yeah,
Yeah.
when when at least for me, when I was able to begin to figure it out, is like where I could go, you know what? I can affirm myself. I don't need my wife to affirm me
Right.
all the time. I can be there for me. And here's what's true: if my wife isn't available, I can connect with other people
Hmm.
and build those relationships. So I have that kind of autonomy,
Yeah.
um, which I think
Yeah.
demonstrates on some level wholeness. And
Yeah. Having a sense of autonomy. Yeah. I
yeah,
think also there's this factor around like I think vulnerability.
mm,
I
yeah,
think sometimes and people who are in very codependent relationships, they depend on each other obviously too much. But there's that whole piece around, well, I feel safe with you.
ooh, yeah,
Um, and so they don't really trust or feel safe with other people. And so that's why there's often that imbalance of over dependence on someone else
mm,
that they have been around a long time, or they have been in a relationship with a long time, or even our family members. Now we can be codependent with our family members
for
because
sure,
we've known them forever.
for sure.
And so we can trust them to always jump in when I'm having a pity party, or always
Mm,
be the caretaker and run in and escape us, from whatever we're dealing with as a problem,
mhm,
because that's what we're used to. And
sure.
we know how to trigger them. We know that one word to say, help, or I can't do this by myself.
Mm,
I remember this. I remember this stuff because I grew up with it. And so, like, but I'm not proud of it. But at the same time, I know it was part of growing up as a child of an alcoholic, you know,
How you
it
cope?
just was. And you learn negative patterns because everybody's trying to figure out how to cope and in a very dysfunctional way. And everybody's trying to figure out how to appease the
Mm,
one who is the problem in the family. But it's always a very unpredictable way of trying to appease and a very unsafe way emotionally. And so it just keeps building upon, you know, one problem after another after
yeah.
another.
You know how codependence actually came about, that whole term?
How's that?
What's the history of it? Hmm?
What's that?
In codependence. So the term codependence actually initially began to describe it was actually applied to people whose spouses were in AA, were in Alcoholics
Mm,
Anonymous, right? So what they determined, what they understood, began to understand eventually, is that nobody actually does addiction by themselves.
okay.
So the codependent. So what happened was that the person who was the alcoholic was dependent on the alcohol, and the
Mm-hmm.
person who was codependent might have been the spouse. So let's say it's a wife, right? So
Mm,
so the alcoholic, because he stayed up all night drinking with his buddies over the weekend and
mm,
just stayed drunk the whole time, right? When
okay.
it's Monday morning and he needs to go to work, he's hungover. He doesn't feel like it. He can't get out of bed. So what does he do? He asks his wife to call in sick for him and to
Mm,
say, hey, Bob, I think has a cold, and I don't think
mm-hmm.
he can come in today. Um,
Okay.
right now, she knows he doesn't have a cold. He lied. I mean, he's drunk, right? So he's hungover. So she lies to him for him to protect him, to facilitate his addiction. Because what will happen then
Mm,
is next weekend, same thing will happen. He'll go drink, 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 can't get up, go to work in the morning. She's
mm-hmm.
calling, going, hey, I think Bob, I think this time, I think it's his back right now is bothering him. You see where I'm coming from? But that's where the
Yeah.
whole codependent piece came from. Um,
Hmm.
now it's been broadened though to talk about people not just with substance use issues, but people who themselves find themselves addicted
Mm-hmm.
to relationship. So
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, I don't think we want to give away all the goods this week. It's
No,
we do want to
might come
kind
back
of
to a part
continue the
two.
conversation a little bit next week. Um,
Yeah,
but we're going to talk about some remedies next week and things that you can do differently in order to not fall into that pattern of negative behavior. I think that's very important. Um,
yeah. And if
being
you
able to,
are in it,
pardon me.
if you are already there,
Mm-hmm,
how do you recognize that, identify it, and what do
mm-hmm,
you do moving forward? How do you heal that? Because at
yeah,
some point, we should talk about this. Why is it unhealthy to be in a codependent relationship? Because people eventually get sick and tired of being sick and tired,
yeah.
right? All of
Mm-hmm,
the as you said earlier, all of the drama, right? Eventually get tired of it, and
mm-hmm,
um, somebody then wants to change. We can't keep going this way.
yeah.
So so yeah, so it's unsustainable ultimately.
Yeah, it's not a lot of respect either for your
Mm,
significant
after
other
a
or
while, yeah,
whoever even your family members.
sure,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, listen, I guess you want to end it there. Come back next.
Yeah, let's do that. And then next week we'll come back and we'll talk about remedies in terms of how to deal with it. What are
Yeah.
some healthy ways to counteract codependency?
So stay tuned. We'll see you next week.
Stay tuned. See you next week. Bye.
Bye bye.